There's a lot of back and forth. There's a Senate bill that's made its way through that would leave the SEC in charge of a large portion of the oversight. I think it would move some of the regulation to the CFTC. Are you familiar with that bill, and what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of an age-old issue between the CFTC and the SEC. We have a great relationship historically. We continue to communicate and work together. We have a lot of common registrants, but within this space, in my view, it makes sense for commodities to be regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and securities to be regulated by the SEC. And within the sphere of digital assets and the coins, which make up thousands and thousands, there are naturally going to be some commodities and some securities. And in my view, it makes sense to sort of parse through the two and figure out where we can place each. And it's going to be difficult because from a legislative standpoint, again, given what I said earlier, given the novelty of some of these coins and the technology, we're going to have to figure out what would constitute a security under the traditional securities law and what would constitute more of a commodity so that we can regulate appropriately given the two different legal structures.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's all in the eye of the beholder. The SEC chair, Gary Gensler, has said he thinks most of those tokens are securities under the law right now. Does that sound about right to you?
Well, I could say for sure Bitcoin, which is the largest of the coins and has always been the largest regardless of the total market cap of the entire, digital asset market capitalization, is a commodity. So Ether as well, I've argued this before, my predecessors have as well, is a commodity. So there may be, in fact, hundreds, if not thousands of security coins, but there are plenty of commodity coins. And I think it makes sense, as we've done historically, to make sure that each agency has jurisdiction over commodities and security.
Without a mention of the Ripple case, which I won't ask for a show of hands on how many people have heard about Ripple. But what I can say is Ripple is one of the oldest existing cryptocurrencies in the U.S. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that Ripple was the subject of a government action back in 2015, where it signed an unusual kind of an agreement in the wake of a federal investigation on money laundering and other charges. It signed a settlement agreement. Wasn't a prosecutorial agreement, a deferred prosecution agreement or a plea agreement, but it was just a settlement agreement. But if you read it, it read very much like a deferred prosecution or even a plea agreement might read, in that there were a number of commitments and another number of acknowledgments of things that had happened. But it was prosecuted at the time. This case was brought in the context of the money transmitter rules and the FinCEN rules regulating money service businesses. Never really a discussion of securities. And it's important to note that in the agreement, there was a provision, like often you'll see in these agreements, that said it doesn't preclude any other agency, any other governmental entity bringing action. So there's a lot of discussion for a long time between Ripple and the SEC on whether Ripple itself, XRP, was a security, or is a security. That's actually an important term. Is it a security? The SEC back in 2018, through one of its top staffers, made the declaration, and this is hotly contested in the Ripple case, but made the comment that Bitcoin is not a security. And also said that Ether, as it existed, and this is 2018 timeframe, is not a security. But it was as of that date and time. Never cleared Ether when it was originally launched, when the Ethereum blockchain was launched. Did not clear Ether as being a security then. So what's been the issue here? And I'll keep it quite simple, because it's actually over a 100-page complaint that the SEC filed in the federal courts. And what's really at issue here is the way Ripple was created, or the XRP, the token, and the way it was held in the corporate treasury, and the way it was used over time was the way a company uses a security. It was used for compensation. It was used for doing deals, for whatever it might be. And the SEC complaint, very well researched, well documented. As I said, it's over 100 pages long. It's a fascinating read if you ever want to have an idea of how the SEC builds a case as to whether something is a security. But this case has now been in the federal courts for over a year. There's been a lot of back and forth. We have communities that are, well, we have the Bitcoin maximalists, and I imagine there are a few of you here in this room, but there are also Ripple maximalists. But this is still out there. And to be honest with you, I think as this case goes, I think the SEC is sitting on a number of other cases that have the same kind of issue underlying it. And where probably the potential plaintiffs in the, or defendants in those cases have signed statute of limitations waivers. Because guess what? If you count 2017, when a lot of these ICOs happened, it's 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. Whoa, that's 5 years. Statute of limitations is about to run on a bunch of these. So the question is, how big is their file of statute of limitation waivers that they have sitting there, all sort of timed off of what's going to happen with this case.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And again, it's confirmed Bitcoin is a commodity. And we know it is. It's a commodity for the robots, algorithms, and drones. It's just like a checking account, an IOU. And then we'll have Bitcoin Lightning moving the payments on that second layer. And we know the Ripple SEC case is about to come to an end because we're going to get global regulation. We know Ripple is going to get a slap on the hand. Brad Garlinghouse and Larson are going to ride in the sunset. And then we have Bernanke. We already knew the Fed created the problem, printed all this money. Now we have inflation, crisis everywhere. But guys, this was all planned out. This was the way to end America to Babylon while the sheep are asleep. It is unbelievable what the NWO gets away with. Here in America, in other nations you can see. Some of them are so deprived, but in America people are so spoiled. Don't want to wake up to reality. But on this channel, I give you the truth, nothing but the truth. Yes, the truth hurts, but what does it do? It sets you free. America to Babylon is over. The U.S. dollar is over. It's going to be the rise of the digital yuan backed by that digital SDR, and all your privacy will be taken away. They're going to tell you what, where, and when, and how to buy, plus the blockchain gives them the all-seeing eye. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you because he knows. When it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
We also talked with Bernanke about the chances of a recession. Here's what he had to say.
The more the Fed has to tighten in order to get inflation down, the bigger the chance of a recession and the more severe it will be. How much the Fed has to tighten depends in turn on what happens to these factors they can't control, like the supply chains and the commodity prices. So that prediction requires you to make a prediction not only about the Fed's behavior, but about a lot of other things, the Ukraine war, et cetera. So it's a very hard thing, very uncertain thing to say. I guess that I still tend to believe that some of these forces pushing up inflation, like the supply chains, like the preference for durable goods over services, and some of the commodity price increases, gas prices and so on, that they will at least stabilize and begin to moderate sometime during this year, which would mean that inflation will come down to some extent, let's say by itself, but without the Fed's direct intervention. If that happens, the Fed would have to raise rates perhaps moderately above neutral, say in the 3s somewhere. When they do that, they'll slow demand. But as Jay Powell has pointed out, the economy is pretty strong. We're not going into recession as often is the case with a troubled economy. In fact, the underlying economy, as we recover from the pandemic, is quite strong. We have a very strong labor market, for example. We have a strong financial system. We have strong balance sheets. So if the inflation slows, as I expect it ultimately will, although I've been disappointed about how slow that process is, then the Fed should not have to raise rates too far. And what we would get then would be a slowing of the economy, maybe even a stall, but not a severe recession. The severe recession would only come if these other factors simply do not cooperate. And in particular, the thing people should watch most closely is inflation expectations. If inflation expectations, as measured by break-evens in the inflation-protected securities market, as measured by surveys and so on, begin to move up in a significant way, people have lost confidence in the credibility of the Fed will have to react much more strongly, and the effects on the economy will be much more deleterious.
And how concerned are you about that?
For the moment, knock on wood, this is a big difference between today and the 1970s. In the 1970s, inflation expectations were all over the place, and nobody had any confidence in the Fed that it would bring inflation back down. Today, most indicators suggest that people are still pretty confident that the Fed, or maybe some combination of the Fed and the end of the pandemic, will lead to more normal inflation in the future.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort, and China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.